Howdy all. We're deep in the heart of summer. We're getting closer to the Major League Baseball trade deadline, which always excites me and Russ because we're baseball fans as well as hockey fans.
I don't know if it excites me. I mean, I just wrote an article on Sportsology about the Mets and their failure to lock up their young pitching, and now Jacob deGrom's sort of on the block. I'm not excited about that prospect at all.
Well, I included in my my Sunday musings column about the Blue Jays, since most Leaf fans are Blue Jays fans, and how, really the Blue Jays should follow what the Leafs did a couple years ago and just blow up everything. The Leafs traded guys in their prime. They traded Kessel. They traded Phaneuf. The Blue Jays should trade, Marcus Stroman, Donaldson, burn it down to the wood.
But here's the thing, though. Some sports you could burn it down to the woods and get away with that. I don't think you could do that in baseball anymore. I don't think baseball works that way.
It depends if you have commodities that teams want so badly that they'll give up premium prospects for.
Yeah, but the thing is, even if I go with the prospect angle, baseball's prospects are probably the hardest to figure out of any sport. And just use the Tampa Bay Rays as an example. They had a pick in the top 10 for a decade until they got good.
Yeah.
And that was because they didn't spend money. There's a combination of doing it, and I'm not in favor of baseball teams taking it down to rebuilding. Just look at the Phillies. They're probably 5 more years away, and they did that, and they thought they'd be further along, and they're not.
Well, with okay, and we'll just go on with this for a second. Then I got a little U2 rant here. For a team like the Phillies, there should be no doubt that they would trade their lone all-star guy in Pat Neshek. They should trade him because they're not going to be a contender for 4 or 5 years. So why not trade a relief pitcher? The justification.
I'm not saying I'm against trading Neshek, but when they traded Giles as an example, a guy who throws 100 miles an hour, who could be on a World Series winning team this year for Houston. Yeah. He was young. Did they have to trade him?
Well, it depends, and this is what's going on in Toronto right now. A guy like Marcus Stroman, I'm not sure how many more years he's under control, but he's not being paid a ton right now. But it's a question of what they're going to have to pay him when his contract comes up and whether the organization is willing to do that. They have Aaron Sanchez as well, another young pitcher. The guy, it's not a big decision for the Blue Jays, who are, 6 or 7 games under 500, to trade Jose Bautista or Marco Estrada or some of these older guys, because they're making big money. They're short-term on their contracts. They're not very good anymore. So, get as much as you can for them. But you're not going to get a big return unless you trade somebody who's controllable and young enough. And that's, Donaldson for a year and Stroman and their closer Roberto Osuna. If you do that, you get value back. Just like, Chris Sale is under control for Boston for a couple of years. Chicago traded him. They got one of the best prospects in baseball in Yoan Moncada. So they are. Why not?
Where's Chicago right now? If Chicago,
they're rebuilding.
I know. But that's the thing. Like I'm saying, the term rebuilding in baseball is a tough term to take because it's a different sport than the others, especially with no salary cap.
You risk the possibility of saying you're rebuilding and being like the Pittsburgh Pirates and disappearing for 15 years. If you don't get the right prospects and they don't pan out, you're right. But I think it's still a better way.
And let's be honest, more teams go down that route of being bad for 10 years or so than get it right.
Right, but it's still better than just hovering in mediocrity and never doing anything. There's methods to contend. One of them is spending a lot of money. Another one is tearing it down and rebuilding. You just have to have the right scouts, the right general manager making the right decisions, and get the right players and hope they stay healthy. It's a lot of hope. It's a lot of
that's pretty. It sounds easy. You're right.
It's not easy, but it's preferable than friggin' just being a team that's 70 and 92 every year. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on this. I love going to concerts, but concerts, I'm sure, as everybody know out there, are getting ridiculous in terms of the price tag. especially big bands who can demand it. I mean, the Rolling Stones, obviously. I wouldn't want to go see the geriatrics on stage. You know, I don't need to see octogenarians jumping around and singing Jumpin' Jack Flash. But U2 is a band that I've liked for a number of years, but when they've played in Buffalo, especially, they've played the KeyBank Center, the Sabres Arena, which has about 20,000 seats, a little less than that. And the tickets, all of them have been $150 to $200, which is obscene.
Right.
Now, this summer, in early September, they're playing like outdoor concert venues, football stadiums. They're playing where the Bills play, New Era Field.
Yeah.
And I'm going. I've never seen U2 live. I'm going. And the only reason I'm going is because tickets in the upper deck are $35. And now I'm going to be
still going to be 3 miles away.
Yeah, I'm going to be basically like, you know, the game, the stadium's in Orchard Park. I'm basically going to be in downtown Buffalo watching it. But
yeah.
at least there's a big screen. At least I can say I've seen U2 in binoculars.
You're going to be waiting for like the edge to break with our off tackle run up the middle. You're waiting for that play to develop until you can actually see him.
He's gonna kick a field goal and then do the guitar solo for "Bullet the Blue Sky." So,
thank God for big screens, but for $35, yeah, you're gonna.
And I can imagine it's gonna be like an echo chamber. But apparently, they're from what I've heard from other people who have seen them in other venues in other cities, the sound system that they have for big concert venues is really good. So even though they're gonna be this big, I will be able to enjoy it just for the spectacle of it. But
that's fine. Yeah,
whatever. But anyway, let's get the show started.
I mean, so that week you don't buy wings. I get it.
Right. Yeah. That's a couple orders of wings, 35. Well, hey, if you go to the Anchor Bar, it is because they milk you. My video started locking up there. Was it slow there?
No, you're fine.
Okay, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, July 18th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. As it usually happens, we have breaking news just around either the end of the show or the beginning of the show. And there's been a lot of chatter.
Is that done on purpose because we're the only show on? So they're
out there
trying to screw us. Is that
they're doing us favors? They're giving us content here. Thank you, guys. But Slava Melamud, who's a reporter out of Russia, who is pretty accurate when it comes to.
Yeah, he's a pretty good reporter.
Pretty good reporter. And there was something cryptic that he sent out earlier this morning, and I'm struggling, of course, here to pull it up. But basically, what he said was that Russian NHL players have been telling him that the league has an alternate schedule that includes an Olympic break. So
which league?
The NHL.
Well, we had the schedule. It's not in there.
Right. But he's saying is they have a double secret schedule that in case, and this is the thing that drives me crazy. Gary Bettman has said we're not going to the Olympics. Mm-hmm. If all of a sudden there's a turnaround and the NHL is going to the Olympics, I for one will be really perturbed. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of fans will be perturbed because obviously there's a schedule set up. There is games on certain days, and all of a sudden you're going to say, okay, that Buffalo versus Toronto game on February 18th, and I'm just making up a date and making up two teams, but all of a sudden that's going to be moved to November because we have to accommodate this Olympic break.
Sure, you get mad if it's 70 and overcast one day in the summer, like you do. But here's the thing. I'm going to give you the other side of it. What if, and I don't know the odds of this or the chance of this, but what if this is now the PA sort of going back to the NHL saying, we won't back out of our agreement and there won't be a risk of a lockout if you allow this. And that would be a lot for the NHL to turn down then, right? Then all of a sudden the owners might be like, all right, you know what? We didn't really want to do this, but if they're going to guarantee us that, which is what, 2020, they're going to guarantee us in 2020 they're not going to opt out, that's worth it to us.
Right.
That would be worth it to them.
That would be worth it to the owners, but the PA has said they're not doing that. They're not giving them anything.
They said that, but maybe
right.
There's been a lot of discussion in the PA for the last couple of weeks. We know this.
If the owners are getting something out of it, okay. But from they didn't get any concessions for the IOC,
right?
And they're not getting any concessions for the NHL from the NHLPA.
It's going to have to come from the players now.
Right now, this is the report from Slava. According to Sports Express writer Alexei Sevchenko, Russian NHLers have told him the league has a backup schedule with an Olympic break. So that's one report. Elliot Friedman reported this morning that from the NHL side, there is still some question about which players are going to be allowed to go. Now, this is under the assumption that NHLers are not going. And Friedman reported that AHL players on AHL-only contracts would be allowed.
Right, which is what we figured. Well, no, we didn't figure that. We weren't sure how the AHL was going to fall on this.
Right. There's what he's saying is, and it hasn't been clarified yet, but players that are on NHL two-way contracts, meaning they can be called up, they cannot go. I mean, right now that's what they're saying. It's only players who are signed to AHL contracts playing in the East Coast League or the AHL that will be allowed the freedom to go.
Okay, here's the thing. I don't want to disparage Elliot's report, but we haven't seen one Russian player sign that deal yet. And until a Russian player signs a deal like that, to me, it's not going to happen. Like, that would be an indicator, right? If you were a Russian player that had a choice to go into KHL or come over and start your NHL career but has to go to the AHL, the only reason you might do that is because you have a guaranteed spot on an Olympic team. But we haven't seen one guy do that yet.
No, but I think this is more focused towards Canadians and American players.
I disagree. I think it might be in the beginning process of it, but if you think about it, if you're a guy in the middle, if you're a Russian player, or, I mean, it would make sense that you go to the AHL and you just gut it out for a year if part of that year means you have a spot on the Olympics. So when that happens, when I see a Russian player jump, then I'll think Elliot's right. Otherwise, I think it's just talk.
Right. I mean, this is what he said. It says NHL GMs were under the impression that players on two-way contracts would not be allowed to go, although we're waiting a final ruling. So nothing has been etched in stone.
No.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that's perturbing here is make a decision and stick with it. Honestly, once early October. Once it's early October and the season begins in principle, you can't change the schedule then. You cannot do it. So basically,
once they start selling tickets, you really can't do it.
Well, they've already done that. That's the thing. They've already done it. They've already sent out the schedule and season tickets.
But only for season ticket holders. They haven't sold to the public yet, right?
No, but they don't do that until September. But
that's the drop dead date then, when they sell tickets to the public, because they're the ones that you can't sort of change that at the last minute.
I mean, honestly, I've never been like really pro Olympics in terms of, I mean, I get it, but I don't like the 2-week break in the middle of the season and all this stuff about do they go to South Korea, do they not go to South Korea? Okay, they've made the decision. I don't want to see it. I don't care. Like, I'll watch it as like the World Junior as the NHL is going along. I'll watch the World Junior as a secondary thing. I don't want the NHL to stop. I don't want them to take a 2-week vacation. I don't want them to go to the Olympics. I'm sick and tired of it. This cat and mouse game is annoying. And if they go back,
so here's the best names I've got for NHL one-way contracts: Jake Dotchin, Pyarvi for St. Louis.
Well, Dotchin's not on an AHL deal. He's a two-way.
No, it says one-way here.
Okay, so
he's a 2-year one-way contract.
Yeah, so he can't go.
You just said a one-way can go.
No, an AHL only.
Oh, so it's AHL. I'm sorry.
No, it's anything that has an NHL option, they can't go.
Right.
So we're talking like if we're talking about the Toronto Marlies, we're talking about Jean Dupuis.
Yeah.
Or we're talking about Michael Paoletta. We're not talking Kasperi Kapanen or Travis Dermott or any of their major prospects or Timothy Liljegren. We're not talking about any of those guys.
Right. Well, not yet for Liljegren. He could do that kind of contract though.
No, he's already signed an entry level.
Oh, no, he already signed his ELC. It's too late for him.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So no, that's what I'm saying. You've got all these players locked up. They're all locked up on 2-way or 1-way deals.
All right, I got a list now. Hold on, I got a better list.
Okay.
Here are some of the players. From Bakersfield, there's nobody like Zach O'Brien, Chad Butcher. I'm looking. I'm just scanning through Chicago. Tyler Wong. There's nothing to choose.
There's not much there. Basically, what this is if and I'm still going on the assumption that NHL players are not going, that most of the Canadian and American roster is going to be made up of Americans and Canadians playing in Europe, like the Spengler Cup. Americans in the KHL, Americans in Sweden, Americans in Switzerland, etc. I don't know whether college players will be allowed to go. College players are property of NHL teams. They're drafted.
Yeah, but they're not for that season. So I'm assuming college players can go.
Yeah, but do you think that Boston U is going to let, or Boston College is going to let Joseph Wall or Jake Totora, they're going to allow those guys to go and play?
I don't think they have a choice. They're not really under their control for this season. So,
yeah, but they would be
like Boston. They work with USA Hockey all the time. Right. So I don't think they're going to say no. I don't.
But they would be leaving. I mean, I'm not sure when the Frozen.
I know.
When do the playoff the NCAA
regionals start?
Regionals, they start in March, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would at least be before the playoffs start. But they're not going to just leave and fly to South Korea. It would be a month-long, training camp type of getting things in order situation.
Oh, they probably wouldn't have much of a training camp. That's the thing.
Right.
They would have to, that's where they would sort of get hurt, and they get the players, but they wouldn't get them to some sort of camp. The camp would have to be now in the off season. They'd have to have the camp before their season starts. You know what I mean? Which they could do.
Yeah, let's just say, and
it's usually it's late March, so it is doable.
Yeah, there'll be more news coming out on this, but just put me in the column of I don't want them to go to the Olympics. I'm sick and tired of the Olympic discussion. We'll talk about the Olympics when they go to China in 2022. If they go to the Olympics in 2018, I'll watch, obviously, because I cover hockey and I have to, but I'll be perturbed because I think this is a mistake.
You'd be perturbed anyhow. What's the difference?
That's crap. That's a bunch of crap.
You would. You'd be like, oh, Olympic hockey's not NHL. Come on, I know you would.
Okay, moving on here. Some interesting notes regarding salary arbitration. A couple names that are rather prominent. Thomas Tatar from the Detroit Red Wings, Colton Parayko from the St. Louis Blues. Tatar is a pretty straightforward one. It's a one-year deal. Russ, this is a guy who scored 19 goals once and then 3 20-plus goal years with Detroit. Detroit is offering him in arbitration on a one-year deal 4.1. Tatar is asking for 5.3. Usually these things end up in the middle.
Yeah, he'll get 4.7 or something.
Yeah, and though I usually these guys, these situations do not go to the actual arbitration. They settle it before they start throwing insults at each other.
This one might, though. This one might, because we've seen quotes where Tatar basically said, "This is the last year I'll be in Detroit," clearly. And so, he can't get his feelings hurt at that point. And so he may not want to negotiate with the team and may let it ride based on the fact that he knows he ain't coming back.
Yeah, he's 26 years old, and this is a team that's starving for goal scoring. So, and they do have cap room. So this is strictly a money play here. Yes. But, if I look at his record, I'm opting, and usually I'm a pro team person, but in this situation with a guy who scored 21, 23, 29 goals, I'm giving him $5 million. I think he deserves it.
Yeah, I think he's going to get that, and I think for whatever reason the Red Wings, maybe just based on the fact that they know there's no long-term future here, that they're not gonna care that much, and they're just gonna try and get the best deal they can.
Now, with Parayko, I mean, the thought was going into this year, they've traded Shattenkirk, that they would extend Parayko and probably try to get him on that 7-8 year deal, lock him up. But maybe the contract of somebody like like Jacob Slavin, make 5-3, and then the money of certain players in free agency has scared St. Louis off in the sense that they want to, maybe get a couple years where he's below market value and then give him the big money. What the report is regarding arbitration is that St. Louis wants 2 years on Parayko, and they're offering him in the mid $3 million range. Parayko wants 1 year at $4.85 million, and he had a great year last year. And
they want to make sure he has a couple more before they go deep. Like, this is part of what I'm talking about. Like, everybody says, well, you sign him up and you gobble up those years, and it's like, you know what? Not all teams want to do that.
Well,
once you have a couple of guys on the roster that are in that boat, then you do have to slow down the other guys and make sure you have what you have. I think it's fair.
Well, and this is the thing. I mean, we knew that they weren't going to pay Shattenkirk.
Right.
They have Tarasenko locked up on a long-term deal. They've got Bouwmeester and they've got Pietrangelo locked up on long-term deals. They signed Jaden Schwartz to a long-term deal.
Mm-hmm.
It might be at the point where they don't want to lock up another player on a long-term deal. They don't want to tie up all that money for 5 or 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, how many years does Bouwmeester have left?
I think it's 3. Let me just double check, but I think it's like 3 years. And if it's, and
so
I mean,
in 2 years, when this deal is done, then they'll lock him up and maybe trade Jay Bouwmeester.
Yeah, but you'll get nothing for him because
they don't care. They just
Bouwmeester. Okay, Bouwmeester has 2.
Yeah.
Pietrangelo has 3.
So that's the perfect example right there. Basically, they're waiting for Bouwmeester's to expire so they can give Parayko his money. That makes sense. That's smart.
Now Parayko is coming off the entry-level deal, which means he's got 4 years until he hits unrestricted free agency.
Right. So in 2 years, you go back to the drawing board. Jay Bouwmeester isn't there. He gets his contract. That's simple.
Best case scenario for St. Louis is to sign Parayko to a 3-year deal and have another year before he'd be an arbitration.
He won't do that though.
No,
the player won't. No.
Well, I mean, in one instance, it's
because they know that Bouwmeester's coming off the books. They're going to want the money in 2 years. They will.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it would be advantageous to the player in one respect. I think he'd probably get a little more money on a 3-year deal than a 2-year deal. He would be an RFA, arbitration eligible in 3 years, but I mean.
Yeah, I think it's more advantageous to the team at that point. And I think if you're the player and you're the agent, you're looking at that and saying, when Bouwmeester's up, we want that salary slotted to our guy. If you wait another year after Bouwmeester, they may sign somebody else, and then you lose your opportunity.
And then you hold out and you get traded.
Right. I mean, I'm just saying, right? I mean, that's the shell game. So I think you go 2 years, and then when Bouwmeester's done, as long as you've played the way Colton Parayko's been playing, no reason to think he won't, fair deal.
Now, just to put a capper on the Ilya Kovalchuk situation, which was the guy who stayed in Russia.
Oh, that guy.
The guy who everybody thought he was coming over. Well, apparently.
We were never, look, it's funny. I kept getting information. We were never sure, but I would say I probably brought up more times than I brought up he's coming, that I think he was just bargaining against himself to get more money over there. And so we weren't shocked when he stayed. Like, I was completely non-shocked.
And he didn't get much money, according to a report he apparently will get 200 million rubles from SKA St. Petersburg, which converts over to dollars as 3.38 million. So he's not. I mean,
but 3.83 tax-free is like getting $5 million in the NHL. It is
right, which is what he was shooting for. He was shooting for
no one would pay him.
Right, and
but nobody that he didn't want to go. Like he made his market very small. He would only go to certain teams. Those teams didn't want him. That's what it boiled down to.
And now the question is, did those teams not want him because they would have to give up compensation to New Jersey?
Yes.
Or was it the fact that they didn't want to pay the money?
It was a combination. We might pay the money if we don't have to lose anything. Now that we're losing something, we don't want to pay you that kind of money. Because assets cost you money, right? I mean, you lose a player, that is costing you probably a couple million in your pocket for player development and everything else that you've done, and now you're giving that player up.
See, I think the chilling effect on him is the fact for next year is the fact he's going to be 35. So it's
There's no chilling effect. Come on. You know what the chilling effect is? He'll have to go to Starbucks in Russia instead of going to Starbucks in New York.
No. For next year. For next year.
Oh, yeah. I really got to feel bad for him if he comes over and has
I don't care. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about teams. I'm talking about teams will be leery of signing him as a 35-year-old because the
they'll sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal. That's all they'll do.
I don't know if they'll do that. I'm saying
because if the price is right, they definitely would.
But he won't get as much money as he might have as a 34-year-old because the risk was less.
But does he need money?
No. I mean, I'll take
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
He's just another rich guy. Move on.
Okay. We're going to do an abbreviated show today, but we wanted to touch on this because I thought it was a good subject to talk about. We look at the 2017 draft, and other than maybe the top 2 or 3 picks, the expectation is that most of these players are not going to be in the NHL this upcoming season. It's a draft with a lot of quality, but I think mostly it's going to be players that need another year in junior or need another year in Europe, and maybe 1, maybe 2 guys will make the NHL. That being said,
even like 4 guys, if 4 guys make it, that may be the max amount.
Right. That being said, if you and we're gonna do top 5 guys.
We'll just do 5. We won't put them in ranking order. We're just gonna name.
Right. No, not in any particular order. But I concentrated on guys who I thought from the 2015 and 2016 drafts who qualify as rookies, who would be the leading candidates for the Calder. And some of them are on my list. Some of them, it's not 100% sure they're gonna make the NHL. But I think if they do, with the particular teams that they are playing with, they could really light it up and be a contender for the Calder. So why don't we just alternate? I'll go 1, you go 1. Okay.
And if we match, then we do need to say, hey, it's a match.
Okay. All right. I'll start with Alex DeBrincat of the Chicago Blackhawks.
Okay. I don't have DeBrincat on my list. I'll go with Brock Besser.
Okay. I had Besser on my list, but
now here's what I like about Besser. It's a good thing he's a hockey player. I thought his throwing style for baseball was pretty good, but to me he looked like a second or a third baseman. For hockey, he's much better off, and he could come in and get 55 points, and I wouldn't be shocked because he's going to have opportunity. That's a team that is going to be looking for a spark in training camp. He might just be that spark.
I mean, I've heard speculation that he might play on the right wing with the Sedins,
and then he might get 60 points.
Yeah, and if he does that, then he could really contend. Now, DeBrincat with the Hossa, basically in limbo. The Brandon Saad they bring in, who probably will play with Jonathan Taves. Very good chance that DeBrincat could play with Patrick Kane.
There is a good chance of that. If that happens, he'll get some points.
He could be the guy that replaces Panarin on that line.
Yeah, he could get a lot of points, but there's more of a leap of faith that he will be on that line with Kane than Panarin was going to be, based on the money they spent on Panarin. They had to sort of try that out. It worked. They may not be as willing to try that out with DeBrincat right off the bat. We'll see.
Yeah. The second guy on my list is Pierre-Luc Dubois of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
I thought about him. I did.
What's that?
I said I thought about him. He didn't make my list, but he's like the next one. He'd be like the 6th guy.
Yeah, the only thing I'm a little hesitant about is, we were playing for John Tortorella. I think it might keep his offensive numbers down, but I think he'll get opportunities. It's unsure whether he'll play center or play wing. He played center in junior, but he's got a lot of talent, and he was, number 3 overall in the draft in 2016. So I think he's a quality player. So I think just by being that high quality, he's going to be a contender for the Calder.
Yeah, he's got an excellent chance. I mean, I think he'll be in the conversation, but I am going to be worried about the amount of playing time. Werenski was a different situation. I don't think Tortorella had a choice.
Right.
On defense, he needed someone to step up, and they did. On offense, that's a whole different thing. He's got players.
But I think they do need offense. I mean,
they do, but this is Tortorella. He would play Stu Bickle over somebody who was better offensively because Stu Bickle did exactly what he wanted him to do, right?
Remember, they're going to be heavily dependent on guys like Wenberg and a lot of their younger players to pick up the slack for a guy like Hartnell, who's gone now. But
we'll see. It's a good choice, though. It is. Clayton Keller. I mean, if he's not the top line center on that team, top power play, top everything, I think something will be wrong. So I think he's going to have so much opportunity, and just the fact that Tippett isn't there is a plus for him because he is a guy that does need to find that open ice and can't always worry about playing back defensively. You let him do his thing, he'll get points, man.
The only thing I'm worried about in that situation is, okay, do they make Keller the number one center, or do they make the bigger body in Dylan Strome the number one center?
No, you got to make Keller. I think.
I agree, but I think there might be.
Keller's better on faceoffs than Dylan Strome. That's the funny thing. Doesn't matter about the size.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
Better.
And I think you're right, but I think that and I've heard stuff about Arizona might be souring on Dylan Strome, but I think they're still going to give him enough of an opportunity that it'll at least at the beginning of the year, if they're both there, it will take away from Keller's opportunities to score because they're going to put Strome in offensive situations.
But you know what? Strome's offensive situations are different than Keller's. Keller's come out of nowhere sometimes. Sometimes Keller's come out of just getting the puck and taking it up the ice yourself because you see a seam, and then all of a sudden you either dish to your teammate or you go right into the net and you make your own scoring chance. He does that. Strome doesn't have that ability.
I mean, Strome could be playing with Domi or Duclair.
Sure.
We don't know what the line mates will be in Arizona. I mean, they've got some talent on the wings. It's a question of who gets lined up with who and who gets the majority of the power play time. Maybe they're both on the power play, but I have a feeling that, just like some of the rookies, I mean, Nylander and Marner sort of, they both had good years, but they sort of, knocked each other out of contention, and then Matthews rose way above them. So even if they were contenders for the Calder, I think there was, per team, there was a limit of one or maybe two.
Yeah.
And they eliminated each other. Now, okay, so I said DeBrincat, I said Dubois. I will go Braden Point of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He did not play enough games to not qualify as a rookie, and he will be in a nice situation being the number 3 center on Tampa behind Stamkos and behind Tyler Johnson, which means a matchup problem for a lot of teams. And you can score 55 to 60 points as a third line center if the ice time is divvied up, and I'm sure John Cooper will. And he seems to be a John Cooper player, so I think there's a good chance Braden Point's going to have a really breakout year for Tampa Bay.
I think he'll have a good year. I don't know if he'll have that big of a year. I'm still not completely sold on his offense, but I like the guy. I like his all-around play. I like his determination. If he plays third line, I don't think he's going to be in the conversation. But he is going to be there, and he is going to get some opportunity. My guy is Kyle Connor. He had 25 goals in the AHL last year. You could play up to, I think it's 29 games.
Yeah.
And he played 20. So he's got a little bit of an edge there. But last year, in 52 games, he had 25 goals at the AHL level. Mm-hmm. He has a lot of speed. He just needed to get a little stronger. To me, he's going to be one of the higher ranked guys as far as going for the Calder, unless something happens, injury, something, he doesn't make it out of camp. But I'm expecting him to have a really nice year.
Yeah. My last guy is Charlie McAvoy of the Boston Bruins.
That's a good one.
He, came up at the end of, he signed his pro deal, played in the playoffs, did not look out of place whatsoever. He's going to get a ton of opportunity with a aging Zdeno Chara in Boston. I think, McAvoy is basically going to take over they had basically had Brandon Carlo playing with Chara a lot last year, and Chara was the defensive guy to protect the rookie. I think it's going to end up being McAvoy playing with Chara, and that's going to help out McAvoy, free him up to be more offensive. I mean, he's already got great offensive instincts. I think he's got a really big opportunity there because, Torrey Krug is their main offensive guy, but, McAvoy could be on their power play. He could be the other point guy in the power play, depending on how they structure it. I think he's got an opportunity to load up some points.
There is that opportunity. I kind of wonder if they're going to go conservative like they did with Carlo the first year, even though he's a better offensive player than Carlo, clearly. But they still might based on his age. We'll see. He'll definitely be playing. So, I mean, we know that. That's a lock. I've got two others that you didn't have. I go with Nico Hischier because we looked at it. Odds are when you get drafted first, you're playing. But that's just it. The last guy who hasn't played, it's been a lot of years. What would we say, 2007?
No, I thought it was Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, but he did play. It was Chris Phillips was the last guy.
It was Phillips, 2000, yeah. Or is he 99?
90, yeah, it was in the 90s.
99, 98, something like that. So Chris Phillips, that's a long time ago. He's long retired. He's in his easy chair, so we haven't heard about Chris Phillips in a while. And so he's sure will get that opportunity. He'll probably play with Taylor Hall. There's going to be a really good chance for him, and he's the kind of guy that plays well with great players. I don't think he had great players when I saw him in the World Juniors, so I think there is a level he could get to even at this young age with some great players moving him along and great, just great veterans, I should say, because these guys aren't superstars on the Devils, but they're really talented, and so I think that'll help his game. Thomas Chabot is a strictly offensive defenseman who plays really good defense. But this is a guy who's just immensely talented offensively, skating-wise and otherwise. Ottawa could definitely use him to step up and make the team. He got this close last year. Pierre Dorian told me at a camp it was like the toughest decision for him because
I think he played. I think he played 9 games. I think
he did.
Yeah. So
and it was a tough decision sending him back, is what I meant.
Right.
But he did make it out of camp, and so but that was a tough decision because he was so close. I think this year he'll be that guy.
Well, he's going to get the opportunity now that Mathot left or Mathot was exposed.
A big opportunity for him. Like he could have a 50-point season.
Well, okay, let's just say this. He's going to have to play with somebody who has a defense-first mentality. He cannot play with Erik Karlsson because
he can play with CC though, and that'd be fine.
Yeah, no, and right, which puts Dion Phaneuf with Karlsson. So
yeah.
I'm not sure how popular that'll be in Ottawa. One I'd say is an honorable mention for me is Sergachev with the Lightning.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know if he'll score enough points, but I think he's good enough.
He's capable, but he may not get the opportunity there because unless he's on the power play, it's going to be kind of tough.
Right, he's probably going to end up being a second pairing guy. The number one power play will always be Victor Hedman and Strawman. But that team, I think, is going to score a ton of points. That if he is a really good two-way defenseman and hits a lot, if he reaches sort of Ekblad level offense in his rookie year, as Ekblad did in 2014-15. I think there's a chance he could contend. I mean, it's a stretch because he'd have to put up really big numbers, and he's a good offensive player. I don't know how great of an offensive player he is, but I think there's an opportunity.
No, it's good. He's got a lot of offensive talent and a big shot. I don't foresee any goalies being in this list. This is a year where I don't think there's going to be a goalie that breaks in and could stay on the list. Like Murray was just, sort of the way it hashed out for him that he was in contention. I don't think there'll be a goalie in contention this year. Nobody that I could tell you right now. Now, if there were some major injuries in Calgary, could John Gillies possibly step in? Sure. But there's very few guys like that could step in this year and really get in the race.
Yeah. Okay. As I said, abbreviated show today. We'll be back tomorrow. Eck has updated the rumor list, and you can take a look at that. We'll discuss that more tomorrow, and I'm sure there'll be more news about this Olympic chatter because we're in the middle of July, so anything that is coming up, people are going to expound on this, especially this, because I honestly think
they know it annoys you, so it'll be on your timeline. It will. I mean, this is like, this is They're going to be like, Mike, tune into the Olympic channel on NBC. It just started up. They're waiting for you.
There you go. I got to get that. I got to get that extra channel on my cable package. Thank you very much. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.